Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CCISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Auditing security governance plays a crucial role in evaluating whether the organization's security oversight mechanisms are functioning effectively. It focuses on the top-level decision-making structures, not just individual technical controls. The audit process determines whether the governance framework is aligned with business objectives and whether executive oversight is enabling the organization to manage risk and maintain compliance effectively. Governance audits are especially important because they evaluate accountability and strategic alignment, two factors that directly impact how security is integrated into the business. When audits uncover deficiencies in policy enforcement or escalation processes, they give the organization an opportunity to correct course before a regulatory finding or a security incident. Stakeholders, including executive leadership and the board, depend on these audits to ensure that the organization is meeting fiduciary responsibilities. These responsibilities include protecting the interests of shareholders, clients, and regulators. Regular auditing also creates a feedback loop, allowing the governance function to evolve based on performance and real-world results. The specific elements of a governance program that are subject to audit vary by organization, but certain components are typically reviewed. One key area is policy development and lifecycle management. Auditors look at how policies are created, approved, reviewed, and updated to determine whether they support security governance objectives. Another area is the CISO's reporting structure. The audit assesses whether the CISO has appropriate access to executive leadership and whether security concerns are being communicated at the strategic level. Governance committees are also in scope. Auditors examine their charters, meeting records, and decision-making processes. Strategic alignment is another common focus. Auditors check whether security initiatives are clearly linked to the organization's business priorities. Lastly, performance metrics, including key performance indicators and governance effectiveness measures, are reviewed to determine whether the organization is monitoring its governance function appropriately. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Internal audit serves as an independent evaluator of governance practices and controls. Unlike the security or compliance teams, which may be involved in implementation, internal audit offers an external viewpoint from within the organization. Its job is to assess whether policies, frameworks, and governance procedures are being followed as intended. Internal audit also helps determine whether the governance function is enabling risk management, regulatory compliance, and executive visibility. Coordination between internal audit and the GRC, compliance, and risk management teams is essential for sharing information, aligning on findings, and avoiding duplication of effort. After completing a governance audit, internal auditors present recommendations to the board or senior leadership. These recommendations are based on evidence collected and are aimed at reducing risk and improving oversight. One of the key values of internal audit is its ability to detect potential governance failures early, before they escalate into operational problems, regulatory penalties, or reputational damage. Audit planning begins by clearly defining the objectives of the review. For governance audits, these objectives often focus on evaluating the strategic alignment of the security program, the structure and operation of governance bodies, and the effectiveness of reporting and oversight. Selecting an applicable framework to guide the audit is also essential. COBIT is commonly used for governance evaluations, but ISO 27-1 and NIST CSF can also provide useful criteria. Scope must be clearly defined. An audit may examine governance at the enterprise level, focus on a specific department, or target one governance domain, such as vendor risk oversight or policy compliance. Audit criteria include both documentary and operational evidence, such as governance charters, performance reports, and meeting logs. The roles and responsibilities of governance actors are also in scope. The audit should assess whether decision-makers are clearly identified and whether accountability structures support transparency and escalation. Auditors use a range of techniques to gather evidence about governance practices. Document review is one of the most common and includes policies, governance committee charters, meeting minutes, organizational charts, and strategic plans. These documents help establish whether governance structures exist and whether they are maintained properly. Interviews with governance stakeholders, such as the CISO, members of the audit committee, legal counsel, and risk officers, help auditors understand how governance works in practice. Observations may also be used. Auditors might attend governance meetings or review reporting workflows to see how decisions are made and communicated. Control testing is another tool. Auditors may test escalation processes by reviewing how recent incidents were handled and whether the governance structure supported timely decisions. Finally, auditors cross-check governance documentation against operational outcomes to see whether the stated processes actually produce effective oversight. Audits frequently uncover common issues related to security governance. One is the absence of formal governance bodies or inadequate oversight by existing committees. In some cases, there may be no charter defining the group's scope or no clear agenda driving its meetings. Another common finding is missing or outdated policies. When policies are not current, they may not reflect regulatory changes or evolving business practices. Ambiguous roles and responsibilities can also be problematic. If it's unclear who is accountable for security strategy, decisions can be delayed or misaligned. Another issue is the lack of performance metrics. Without KPIs or documented reporting structures, leadership cannot assess whether the governance function is working. Finally, some audits find that governance is disconnected from compliance and operational execution. This results in poor follow-through on decisions, a lack of visibility into risk, and missed opportunities for improvement. When audit results are presented to executives, they must be structured for clarity and impact. A good audit report highlights the key findings in language that non-technical leadership can understand. Risks should be framed in terms of business impact, how governance weaknesses could result in financial loss, regulatory action, or strategic failure. Prioritizing findings by urgency and impact helps executives focus their attention where it is most needed. Recommendations must be actionable. That means identifying not just what needs to change, but who is responsible for implementing the changes and by when. Using visuals like dashboards, scorecards, and heat maps can help executives absorb complex information quickly. These tools also support better engagement during executive briefings and board meetings. The goal is not just to deliver a report, but to promote understanding and drive improvement. Remediating audit findings involves assigning clear accountability. Governance gaps must be addressed by updating frameworks, revising policies, or restructuring committees. Sometimes governance roles need to be reassigned or clarified, especially if responsibility is fragmented. Training and communication are often needed to close awareness gaps uncovered by the audit. For example, committee members may need to understand their oversight duties more clearly, or business unit leaders may need guidance on compliance expectations. Scheduling follow-up reviews ensures that remediation efforts are completed and sustained. Targeted audits may also be used to revisit high-risk findings. Over time, lessons learned from governance audits should feed into the organization's continuous improvement efforts. This helps evolve the governance function, increase maturity, and ensure that security remains aligned with strategic business goals. Continuous auditing is an emerging best practice in governance management. Instead of conducting audits once every year or two, some organizations embed governance audits into their regular performance reviews. GRC platforms can be used to track real-time data about policy compliance, control effectiveness, and risk reporting. Automated alerts can be defined based on thresholds. For example, if a certain percentage of governance meetings are canceled, or if performance metrics are not reported on schedule. These indicators help detect problems early and enable faster response. By integrating audit results into dashboards shared with risk and compliance teams, the organization can build a unified view of oversight. This approach supports greater agility. When governance systems are monitored continuously, the organization can respond more quickly to changes in risk, regulations, or strategy. The CISO exam includes multiple topics related to auditing security governance. Candidates must recognize the structures and processes that define governance oversight. They should understand how to scope an audit, what kinds of evidence are relevant, and what kinds of findings are most common. Scenario-based questions may present governance breakdowns and ask candidates to determine what actions an executive should take. Familiarity with audit terminology, governance KPIs, and evidence types is essential. Executive decision-making is also tested. Candidates must show how a CISO would respond to audit results, recommend improvements, and communicate findings to the board. Finally, the exam connects governance auditing to broader domains, such as compliance, risk management, and policy development. Understanding these connections prepares the candidate to lead a mature and effective governance program that supports organizational integrity and resilience. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CSIO Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.